Day 2 of President Trump's impeachment trial will soon get underway after a marathon opening session yesterday. House managers and the president's legal team spent more than 12 hours debating Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell's rules for the trial.
Vote after vote, Republicans turned down all 11 amendments to the rules proposed by Democrats. Well, today, House Democrats will shift their focus from procedural arguments to making their case for removing President Trump from office.
For more on this, let's bring in Antjuan Seawright and Lauren Claffey. Antjuan is a CBS News political contributor and Democratic strategist, and Lauren is a Republican strategist. So, Lauren, first to you. What reasons do Senate Republicans have for rejecting the Democrats' attempts to call witnesses? If they're hoping for a fair trial, if they're hoping for a repeat of 1999, which Mitch McConnell has often said, well, in that impeachment hearing, there were many witnesses who testified before the House, and in some instances, senators asked those witnesses to testify before the Senate.
So there's key differences there that I think are important. During the Clinton impeachment trial, there was actually a full investigation that was done. And then the Senate, when it was brought before the Senate, their argument was fully baked, and there was all of the witnesses had been interviewed, and they allowed additional testimony, but on a videotaped basis. And they voted on that to allow it after they had already reviewed the whole body of evidence. So I think that's really important here, because right now, last night, they were just voting on the rules, so how they were going to proceed. They have not ruled out that they would not call additional witnesses. But what they did was reject a bunch of motions from Chuck Schumer to subpoena documents that really the House should have done during their initial investigation.
All right, so Antjuan, today begins sort of the real deal argument from the House managers, right? In terms of strategy, what do they need to do today?
Well, I think they just have to continue singing the songs they were saying yesterday, just in a different way, because the conversation will shift today about making the case for removal. I want to go back to something Lauren said, and I just have to, with all due respect, Lauren, I think you're flat out wrong. What we know is the information that was released and turned over to the Senate over the weekends was information that was just released by the courts from Giuliani's associates. So that information was not available during the House impeachment body of work when they were going through this process. And secondly, we all know that Trump's attorney general will never allow a special prosecutor to do the necessary work that will be favorable for fair and balance, as we've seen him demonstrate before. And so this idea, this notion that you all continue to repeat is just flat out wrong. The other thing I will remind people is that leopards do not change their spots and zebras do not change their stripes. This entire process started with the Republicans trying to really pour water on what was the obvious truth. And this not wanting to call witnesses has been no different from what we've seen last night from the GOP.
All right. So, Lauren, the Office of Management and Budget released documents on Ukraine and the military aid. They released those documents overnight. Could new information like this put some pressure on moderate Republicans to join Democrats in a push for evidence in this trial?
I think they're going to want to consider all evidence, and I disagree with Antjuan that this new evidence wasn't available. The House had an opportunity to pursue all evidence and all witnesses through the courts, and they chose not to. They chose to go ahead and transmit the impeachment articles over. So, I reject that notion. But there is a desire by Susan Collin and all of these other more moderate Democrats who kind of, they want to see a fair trial. And I don't think that there's all the Republicans do not want to see this brought forward. But at this point, they need to move to the arguments to decide if they need additional evidence. And they haven't heard the opening arguments from the House managers yet. They will hear that today. And I think at that point, there will be, considerations made on what additional information they need to make the ultimate decision of if the president needs to be removed from office, especially so close to the November election.
So listen, Lauren, Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell did make a few last-minute changes to the trial rules. Do you know what prompted that?
It was the moderate Republicans who came forward. It's been reported that Rob Portman and I believe Susan Collins went forward, and they really didn't want the appearance of cramming this thing through, especially in the middle of the night when Americans couldn't really listen. And so McConnell agreed, and so he moved it to 3 days instead of just 2 days of the argument. So last night we obviously saw Chuck Schumer decided to kind of stack the votes. He could have done all of those amendment votes under one package, and they could have had one vote to kind of wrap up last night a little bit quicker, which is one of the reasons why it went so long. But they decided to kind of do individual votes to make sure that everybody was on the record, and that was a decision by Schumer. But going forward, the hope is that these days will not be as long, that they will be 8-hour days, that we will move through the impeachment arguments in a timely manner and in full light of day.
But
Go ahead, Antjuan.
Go ahead, Antjuan.
But can I just say, I think that's just a political pump fake, because when the information came from the House, these text messages, the communication, even the note at the hotel from Giuliani's associates, basically saying what Democrats have been saying through this entire process about how corrupt and what Trump knew and what Mulvaney knew and other people knew, the Republicans in the Senate rejected the idea of even having a conversation about these things, of even wanting to bring them up in the trial. So while it's nice and it's a good political pump fake to say we're going to add an extra day just to please some moderate Republicans who are on political life support, I don't think that's going to change the narrative or the outcome for where Republicans line up on having a real fair and balanced process and being open to considering the overwhelming evidence in front of their faces.
So do these rules then, Antjuan, compare, I mean, we've talked about this, the trial of President Clinton. Is there anything that you see? I mean, this argument has been made over and over again, and you even hear it on the floor of the Senate. Look, we're going to do exactly what we did back in 1999, but that's really not what's going down here.
That's not what's going down. What we knew about this entire process, again, Republicans were going to go to their corner to protect the corruption that overflows from Donald Trump and his associates, and Democrats were going to make the case so that the American people can see all of the corruption that is engaged and involved, and saw how Trump clearly and this administration violated the law. So now here we have the House did its business. The Senate has already determined what business they're going to do, and so nothing, I think, in the end of this process will come as a result other than the American people will know the absolute truth, and they will have to decide if it's important enough to them to give this administration 4 more years in November.
Lauren, to what Antjuan said, you know, there is a general feeling that the outcome of this trial is a foregone conclusion, right? Maybe it's because Mitch McConnell said he is clearly not an unbiased juror, right? So then I have to raise the question to you. You know, the White House attorneys, they have the ability to ask for the impeachment to be dismissed outright, right? A motion to dismiss just before we go through all of this. Why not just do that?
I think they feel that there's a very strong case to be made that the House hasn't done their homework and that there's not a strong argument for what they actually are trying to impeach the president for, which is obstruction of Congress, not anything to do with necessarily the Ukraine impropriety. They are charging him with obstructing Congress. And so the White House actually wants to go through this process because they think that that they can really attack this process as being unfair, partisan, et cetera. And I think you saw a preview of some of those arguments last night when they were saying that they didn't have a chance to defend the president during the House proceedings and those types of things. Whether that's true or not, you can see that they're laying out an argument to be made that the House is moving in a partisan way and that this shouldn't be acceptable.
But Vlad, if the president and his associates, those around him in his orbit, did not have one thing to hide, if the truth was clear as South Carolina weather, then why, through this entire process, have they attempted to stop witnesses from testifying, withheld documents and information, and then continue to spin the truth every step along the way? They've attacked this process from the very beginning. I've said this before, and I'll say it again because I watched so much Law and Order, and I watched so much Matlock growing up. When the facts are not on your side, you attack the facts, and then you attack the process when things are not lining up the way you wanted to. That means you're losing. This process, from the very beginning, Republicans have been losing.
Go ahead, Lauren.
I mean, do you want me to say that Republicans are losing? Because I think that the polling is saying that that's not.
But I'm curious what your take is on I think if you're an average person not paying attention to the 24-hour coverage of this impeachment trial, and you are watching, for example, the CBS Evening News, there are going to be a couple of points that are going to come out of some of the reporting, which is that Democrats are asking for these witnesses, they're asking for this evidence to be introduced, and Republicans are blocking those witnesses and the evidence and the documents. And if you got nothing to hide, and if the call is perfect, as the president keeps saying over and over again, he said it today in Davos, if the call is perfect and you've got no issues, nothing to hide, why not let the facts come out?
and they're going to make the argument that the facts did come out. He released the transcript. So, they're saying that they already did this process. And, to be honest, they're really banking on the fact that nobody's paying attention to this, because when people are out and the voters are talking to candidates in Iowa, Iran came up, their safety came up, but the impeachment did not. I think people are pretty much decided already before this trial even began, at least in the court of public opinion, whether the president was right or he was wrong, whether he should be impeached or not impeached. And so part of the reason why this process is they're trying to move it through so quickly is because it's already been litigated in the House. We've already kind of had all of those arguments. And so this is really a trial to determine if he needs to be removed from office, if they need to impeach him and physically remove him from the presidency this close to the election. And I think that is where the Democrats are not necessarily penetrating the American consciousness.
Lauren, you still didn't answer the question. If you did not have anything to hide, then why will the president not let these people testify? Why will not his
I can't speak
director?
for the president or his team or what they're doing and not doing. I obviously didn't work in the White House, so I don't know exactly what they are trying to do here. But what I can tell you is that you can see that they're laying out an argument that they are putting forth that this is not a fair trial and that they should not be, that it's partisan and that they shouldn't be the ones attacked here so close to the election.
Okay,
well, Democrats
Antjuan,
can
Lauren,
make that same argument,
guys. We're going to have to wrap it up. There will be more of this. For now, though, we're going to say goodbye to you guys. Antjuan, Lauren, thank you so much.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.